Hello and welcome to Pursuit 365 Spirituality Show. I'm Rani Sanghera, holistic healer, registered yoga instructor, psychedelic guide, and coach. Today I'm really excited to be interviewing Dave Robens. He's a transformational coach and author. Dave, I'm so excited to have you here. How are you today?
Thanks so much. Thank you, Ronnie, for including me in this experience. It's great. I'm doing really well today. Thanks so much for asking. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Why don't we start with a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm a transformational coach and an occupational therapist and an author. My book, Love Your Father, Heal the World, that's its working title currently. It's in the process of publishing. And I've been working as a transformational coach for about 10 years and as an occupational therapist in palliative care before that for also about 10 years. But truthfully, I've been in the realm of personal development since I think my early teens, when I was one of the only uh, boys who actually like to talk about feelings and explore spirit and dive deeply into conversation and understanding of being human.
Nice. So, why don't we get started? What does spirituality mean to you?
Mm, Thank you for that great question. It's a really big question, but I guess my simplest answer for that would be uh, oneness with all things, oneness with all things in the universe. I feel generally guided by a loving and compassionate energy that gives me space to thrive as well as make mistakes and helps ensure that I learn valuable lessons. Uh, Not always delivered so easily, but I'd say that that's my what spirituality means to me is this oneness and energy that unites all things in the universe.
Yeah, great. That's a great answer. Can you share a little bit about your journey and what led you to become a transformational coach?
Sure. I was working as an occupational therapist in palliative care and recognized this incredible beauty in the openness and vulnerability that kind of frees itself from ego and the narratives that we've created when we reach the end of life.
Mm,
And I kind of wanted to help people experience that earlier in life, like before death was rapidly approaching. So I started these personal development and self awareness groups for men with about 3 years worth of curriculum. And we would gather on the beach and make a fire and dive into questions to promote deep self awareness and personal growth and build really tight relationships. And within that, one of the men actually experienced so much personal change that he hired me as a coach for the staff in his company. That was how I kind of transitioned from being an occupational therapist in its more typical form to utilizing those skills as a transformational coach
mm.
instead.
What a cool story, how the universe provides for us.
Yes, guided. I was well guided.
You were guided, yeah. So, and how does spirituality play a role in your coaching practice? And how do you integrate those principles when you work with your clients?
Oh, great question. I think that spirituality actually integrates its way into my practice rather than me working it into it. I like to meet people where they're at when we start our collaboration. Some people believe in God, others don't. Others kind of feel spiritual but not religious, and some people experience peace of mind through sunsets or even art. Uh, and usually, we'll get to a place where we see that faith itself is something more than self, and recognize that it's actually a choice and that the value of choosing faith actually far exceeds whatever their previous perceptions were. Some form of fear generally is the underlying reality for the majority of people that I work with.
Yeah.
And to me, faith seems to be the opposite of fear. So when people can truly see that faith is like a cure to fear,
Hmm.
then spirituality can even become palpable.
So faith in yourself, or faith in whatever it is that you believe in.
Um, yes, yeah, I'm not sure that there's any difference. Like I am the universe. You are the universe. We are all inescapable of from the universe. So yeah, faith in self, faith in more, faith in oneness.
Okay, so kind of taking off from that question and faith in self, and I guess that has to do with a little bit of with self discovery as well. So can you explain the importance of self discovery and inner exploration in the process of personal transformation? How do you facilitate that journey for your clients?
It's a great question. I think that you know you don't know what you don't know is kind of where I would start the answer to that. So
Mm.
I think I can actually best answer this question by sharing a story about a client who I worked with for years. Um, he's a veteran. He lives with PTSD, and he's learned to create stress like throughout all areas of his life. And we took a couple of days to hike into the mountains and build fires and dive into conversations that were ones that he had never really had before. And he finally shared some of his most traumatic stories.
Mm.
He was able to kind of finally get them off of his chest. And 30 minutes later, when we were sitting in silence, he said, "You know, I've never felt this relaxed in my entire life. Before this moment, I didn't even realize that this kind of relaxation was even possible."
Possibly, yeah.
Right?
Mm.
So when we don't dive into self-discovery and inner exploration, we can't even be aware of many of the personal transformation possibilities. It's the things again like that we don't know. How can we extrapolate from that?
Mm.
Right? We need to even know that it's possible even to potentially get there.
Right.
So exploring that with people, like guiding people into those spaces to figure that out.
Nice. Beautiful. So many people seek deeper meaning and purpose in life. How do you help your clients connect with their spiritual essence? Like, are there some practices that you go through to help them get to that spiritual essence, or and align their actions with their core values and beliefs?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so I guess I mine for deeper meaning using questions. So like I will ask and ask and ask and ask, mining into the individual to kind of access that spirituality that exists within all of us that creates that oneness. I try to really get to know the person,
Mm.
because when I witness clients in their pattern thinking, I can help to reveal it to them. And then once they start seeing themselves as who they really are, and then feeling more confident through
Mm.
knowing themselves, then we can actually start processing and documenting what their actual personal mission, vision, and values are.
Right.
And when we actually have it mapped out, like written out, then they can focus on aligning all of their actions towards those things, and realizing it, and having it in a prominent place where you might see it every day helps people bring all of their core beliefs to the surface so that
Hmm.
they can live significantly more intentional lives in constant alignment, or almost constant alignment, with what their values are.
Right. I think that's such a big question. A lot of the clients that I've worked with, I'll ask them the question of, who are you?
Right.
Who are you? I write it down. Give me a list of who you are. And after I've worked with them for, a few months, that the answer to that question is always, always very different from how they answered it on the very first day. And the very first day is all the labels that they align themselves with. And then by the end of it, it's their core values and beliefs, and that the oneness that you're talking about. I am the universe, really,
Right.
at the end of the day. So that's it's beautiful.
Yeah, I felt that at the beginning of our conversation when you said, "Why don't you introduce yourself?" And I was thinking, "Oh yeah, here I go labeling myself as all these things." But it does feel right to do that rather than just to say like, "I am love. I am universe."
Right.
That felt, even within the context of a spiritual show, that felt maybe a little bit too vast, and maybe not, what people would be looking for at the introduction of a of
Right.
a person
I
that you're
mean,
interviewing.
when you're in a group of people and they ask you who you are, and they're, you're not going to say, "Oh, I'm the universe,"
Right.
depending on who you're with, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried it, I've played with it, I've said it on a couple of occasions, and
Yeah.
people look at me sometimes, they're like, and others are like, "Oh, tell me more," but, depends on the audience, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, so let's move on. A transformation is something that involves overcoming limiting beliefs and self doubt. So, how do you work with your clients and support them through these obstacles in finding their power and potential?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's great. I guess self-doubt is just a narrative. It's a script that's running inside an individual's head.
Mm.
And my perspective is that life is generally seen by most people as full of both gold and garbage.
Mm.
But when we figure out how we can actually see the garbage as gold, then there really isn't any garbage anymore. And one might categorize self-doubt as, garbage that one's carrying around. But once you can see that there's gold in it, then it isn't garbage anymore. So I guess with my clients, we'll start to look at gifts that are embedded within the limiting beliefs and self-doubts.
Mm.
And I can give you an example here.
Yeah.
My father, he was a really loving man, but didn't always deliver that love in a way that was easy for me to understand as a child, as I'm sure so many people have experienced. And one of his affectionate nicknames for me was Dummy,
Mm.
uh, which he really did mean affectionately. But there are effects of those kinds of labels, particularly on people who start to believe them, like as
Mm.
self-doubt or a limiting belief, right? So I went through many years of my life believing that I wasn't really smart enough to accomplish my dreams, the things that I wanted to do with my life. But later in life, I discovered that this inadequacy story, this belief that I was a dummy, um, was actually a total asset for my profession, and and even the pursuit of my dreams. And what I mean by that is, that people carry around their inadequacy stories and self-doubt. And by experiencing that myself, I was really able to connect with others on the level of understanding that we walk around with this self-doubt and these limiting beliefs.
Mm.
And in that discovery, I found the gold in the garbage, because this was such an asset for me and for developing my skills as an excellent coach, and to help people understand those aspects of their self-limiting beliefs and work their way out of it.
Right.
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 So self-doubt and limiting beliefs are most often an unconscious choice. And when
Mm-hmm.
our power to choose which narrative we want to carry becomes conscious, we no longer need to hold on to these self-limiting beliefs as truth.
Right. Right. There was another thing that you were saying as well, gold and garbage. And I think that as humans, we tend to label things as good and bad,
Yeah.
but it's not. It just is.
Yes.
Life is just happening. It's just that one way is more pleasurable and the other way is really hard. But
Yeah.
if you can get through the hard stuff, that's where the growth happens. That's where you find your gold, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Creating the gold from what you might be labeling as garbage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Beautiful. Um, so spirituality can encompass various practices and traditions. How do you honor diversity of spiritual paths and beliefs with your clients?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I recognize that as a piece of the universe, that I actually don't have the answers for people. I know, people might go to a coach for answers, but I don't have answers for people. And I certainly don't want to impose my ideas on others. I just want to introduce possible life philosophies.
Mm,
So I'm more of a tool to help people bring forward the answers that they actually already have lying within, because true spirituality seems to transcend specific practices and traditions.
mhm,
So
mhm,
again, I just kind of go into my mining practice, which is get as curious as I possibly can about what spirituality means to them, and then just go from there. Meet them where they're at, be on their level, and use the language that they're giving me to create around whatever spirituality means to them or for them.
mhm. Beautiful. So, can you highlight a particularly transformative experience or a success story that you've had from your coaching?
Yeah, I mean, this I'd love to. I'm just thinking of all of the
I
incredible
know.
wins that I've
Absolutely.
experienced.
Just take a moment.
Yeah. Um, yeah, one that I think that really resonates for a lot of people is that I was hired into a company by a COO, a chief operating officer, but in this case, COO also stood for child of owner. And I was hired kind of under false pretenses, because the COO knew that the CEO wouldn't hire a coach into the company. So the COO said that I was a sales rep. And then 5 months into being with the company, the CEO asked to look at my numbers. And when my numbers were zero, the CEO called a meeting.
Mm,
And the COO during that meeting then had to explain how I had been hired under false pretenses, um, and then the CEO jumped in and stood up and was really frustrated and angry, and proceeded to yell at me in a way that where he was calling me a waste of time and a waste of space and a waste of money. And I was sitting there, and in that moment, I use the tool that I spoke about earlier, like find the gold in the garbage. Probably a year before that, in my own stages of personal development, I would have been scared and hurt,
Mm,
and felt really inadequate, and really been worried for my job. But when I, in that moment, could translate what the CEO was saying into a gift and see that this is one of the reasons that the COO hired me in the first place, so that he wouldn't feel trapped under the um, aggression of the CEO.
mm,
Then I was able to, at the end of the CEO's rant, say, I'm so glad that you had an opportunity to get this off of your chest, and I'm hoping that now we can work together toward our common goal of making this company the best company we possibly can.
wow.
And in that moment, I think all of us in the room had this opportunity for transformation. And it was me, in some way, being able to step into my innermost calm, to see past my narratives of fear.
Mm,
For the COO, I think it was an opportunity to also see past his fear and to understand that he didn't need to succumb to the aggression of the CEO, and that he could write a new narrative that would help him navigate things better.
mm,
And I think for the CEO, it was an opportunity to see that there were other options other than the one that he seemed to be so locked into at the time.
right. Wow. It's an incredible story.
Thanks. It
What
was
are
an incredible
some
experience.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. What are some common challenges or obstacles that your clients face when they're seeking personal or business transformation?
I'd say it's the same thing kind of links all of us, um, and it's some form of inadequacy story.
Mhm,
And this not enoughness is fostered throughout our education system, our historic parenting style, and even friend relationships and love relationships or romantic relationships throughout our childhood. And it's not our focus as a society to figure out um, how to navigate those specific things. It's more about getting things done, right? I don't know, as parents, when your child might be doing something like being themselves, but it's obstructing what you're trying to accomplish. It's one of the more common foundations for frustration, and we haven't been taught, like, for the most part, haven't been taught to slow down and not focus on what we're actually trying to accomplish, but focus on the relationship and the love that exists and the collaboration that's possible. And
mhm,
that's changing a lot now, but hasn't for generations. So all of those things kind of foster some form of inadequacy story in so many of us. So
mhm,
that's the common thread, I think, through all of the clients that I've ever had the privilege to work with. And I get to navigate that and help um, them realize that, again, that's a narrative, and that there were experiences that they had that trained them to see things that way. But if
mhm.
that's the case, then we can train new narratives or write new narratives and train our brains to see them that way.
Yeah, beautiful. And that's all about, and we keep talking about relationships with others, but there's a part of it, a huge part, that is really the relationship to self, because it's
Yes.
the most important relationship. And I'm sure in your coaching as well, you help to foster that relationship to self.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to escape your relationship to yourself, right? So, yeah, it's the foundation of it all. We project so much of our lived experience onto the outer world, and and generally spend so much less time exploring the inner world, that yeah, once we recognize that that self-doubt or inadequacy story is something that we're creating, it's the voice in our own head
Hmm.
that's feeding it,
Yeah.
then we get to change our relationship to ourselves, and then that projects outward into our outer world and our relationships that
Right.
way.
Right. And in your practice, have you ever experienced, while you're coaching someone, them having a spiritual awakening? Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I have it happen, not during every session, but certainly during, sessions where people, have that insight,
Hmm.
into a patterned way of their thinking, and recognize that their mind is kind of separate from who they are. It's just one aspect of self, not
Yeah.
separate from yourself, but just one aspect of
Hmm.
self. And in that, people end up, like, yeah, having some form of spiritual awakening, like the realization that I mentioned earlier, that relaxation, they didn't even realize that that kind of relaxation was even possible. And when they have that realization, uh, they recognize the limitations of their thinking mind, and that
Right.
there's something much more vast,
Hmm.
and much more experience out there that's possible. And in that, they find spirituality. And
Yeah.
that's just like, I mean, I have endless examples of people, um, including myself, in when I'm coaching others, or when I'm being coached, of like transcending what I believed to be reality, and living in spirit.
Right. It's a dismantling of your belief system almost.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
then and then having to, it can be quite jarring actually for some people to have that experience, because everything they've known to be true is all of a sudden a lot of it is not,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
And it's
for some people it's jarring, and for others it's this immense relief. Like,
mm,
all this pressure that they had been putting on themselves to know is now gone, because they realize that, of all the things to know in the universe, uh, the infinite things to know in the
yeah.
universe, we're scratching the surface here.
Yeah. So, in a sea of transformational coaches out there, what is it that sets you apart? What is it that you do that you think is, different than everyone else?
Yeah. I would say, you know, as a coach, I have a knack for recognizing the pattern thinking that tends to steer the lives of each individual. But I think that that's a skill that a lot of coaches have.
Hmm.
I would say that for me, the center of my coaching and what sets me apart is connection.
Mm,
My goal is to connect so deeply with the people with whom I'm working, that they feel completely seen and understood, and like universally loved.
mm,
And then from that position, their confidence grows, as does their capacity to believe that the change that they're actually seeking is truly possible.
right.
So if I create the the depth of relationship that's actually possible, so they feel this foundation of security, from that secure place they can take some risks
Mm, yeah,
and dive into the growth that they're actually seeking.
right. Beautiful. Do you have anything else that you'd like to share? Any upcoming programs, or how would one go about getting in touch with you? What is the best way if someone wants to work with you? What do you recommend?
Thanks for that. I'd say, um, You can connect with me through my website, which is daverobens.com. You can find me on Instagram, also Dave Robens. But yeah, probably best to connect with me through my website. There is a contact form there. I would love to connect with you, and for those who have listened all the way through this incredible conversation, I'd be happy to offer you a 90-minute coaching session, complimentary, so you can see whether I would be a good match for you and whether coaching is right for you.
Wow, that's great. Thanks so much, Dave. It's been great having you on the show. I hope to have you back again soon if you would be so inclined to come back and
Yeah,
join
I would
us
love
for
that.
another conversation. So I just want to finish off by saying thank you so much for your time and for being here and sharing your wisdom with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me and for your time and for creating the space for me to share my wisdom and your wisdom too that comes out in our conversation. So I really appreciate that.
Beautiful. Well, have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Take care.